And then the last layer is the knowledge layer. And a lot of companies just default to Confluence for this, right? You have Confluence, you go in here, you jump in, you have your knowledge base, your documents, and you go in and you start to populate all of the things that you do in your company in here. You create checklists, you create SOPs, SOWs, whatever you want in here, and you track them and have your team look at them whenever they need to do something. Now, SOPs are great, and using Confluence is fantastic as like a wiki, but a really common problem that you run into here is that you might create a document, you might create an SOP, and it never gets used. You might create the best document in the world and say, hey, team, this is what we need to use whenever we run this process. And it might be a really great document. It might outline everything to the dot. But the problem is, nobody really wants to go to a separate space, a separate Confluence area just to follow a simple process. So, one thing that we've been doing very often with our clients when we're implementing SOPs is actually just building them directly into Jira. Now, what do I actually mean by that? So I'll show you a live space that we use in Jira ourselves. This is our content creation space. This is where we brainstorm content, where we go through, package it, produce it, publish it. This is the space we use to track all of that. Now, the way we do this in here, we actually used to have a whole document in Confluence that went over, here's how you brainstorm ideas, here's how you package them, here's how we record, all the details we need, the equipment we need, the post-production, and nobody ever used it. We've never even looked at it. I think I've looked at it a couple times. The team probably never even saw it, to be honest. So what we did instead is we built those steps, those SOPs, those processes into this Jira board. Now, how did we actually do that? So basically, all we did was generate tasks and subtasks and used a lot of the description, which is rich text, which is phenomenal, something that a lot of people don't use nearly enough of, to add in all of the context in here. So the first thing we did is add checklist items. So the moment that it enters into our raw concepts, this is kind of our backlog of stuff that we want to eventually work on. The moment we throw it into packaging, it generates checklist items. Those checklist items are the things that we must have completed before it moves on to the next column. So when we have a card here that starts in the raw concepts, it goes into packaging. The moment it's in packaging, it generates 2 checklist items. We need to create 3 title variations and 2 thumbnail concepts. And until this is done, we do not move it to production. And then the moment that's done, we move it into production. And then production has its own set of checklist items. And in here, I think there's one that's duplicated, but the goal is to finalize the angle. The footage has been recorded, uploaded to Google Drive, and everything's good to go for the post-production phase. Looks like that one might have been through the columns a couple times and generated the wrong checklist items. But every step of the process has its own sort of exit criteria before it can move forward. And instead of having this inside of a Confluence doc where I have to pull up a Confluence doc and then look at my Jira board and figure out, okay, what do I need to do for this column? What do I need to do here? What do I need to do here? Everything is located inside of this one card in Jira directly. Now, the second big thing we do here is just populate the description with rich text. So again, we used to do this separately in a Confluence doc. We would link a whole Confluence doc in here, and it would include the titles, the thumbnail, the descriptions, the playlist, everything else. Now we just build that into the description. So again, instead of going outside of Jira to a separate product, to a separate space, to a separate page, everything is in here. Everything we need to do to launch our Jira plans video is located in this work item. Everything that we need to accomplish before it moves forward, and everything we need to include, a part of what's going to be accomplished, is directly in the description. So it's super easy for us to jump in and start using this and just go through and make sure that all of our criteria is met and everything is done in order, in the correct order, before it moves forward. Now, again, the Confluence wikis and SOPs, there's always a place for those. There's always complex, instructions, context that we want to add, that we want to reference later. Those always have their place. Those don't go anywhere. But any moment where I can identify a process that I can look at, and then in that process, I can include the kind of steps as a checklist item, all the context can be included in the description. And rather than going to a separate place to look at what's happening and how to move this task forward, everything is generated for the team, the end users in here. It's going to save you a ton of time. And not only that, it's actually going to get used versus probably forgotten inside of a separate document. So that's one of the quick tricks that I've kind of been implementing with a lot of our clients as we've been rolling out our grid operating system for them, and something that I highly recommend you try out for yourself, maybe on just one or two processes to see how it works, because it's been so much better than just having separate documents for us. The biggest Jira mistake I see being made is when teams try to achieve a goal by implementing Jira, but they miss the execution layer. This is the thing that allows you to achieve your goals inside of your tool layer. And if you're curious how we implement the grid operating system with our clients, hit the first link in the description below.